The first thing Alara Vale noticed when consciousness crept back was the silence. Not the comfortable kind. The suffocating kind that wraps around your throat and whispers that everything has changed. Her eyelids felt heavy, weighted down by something more than sleep. When they finally fluttered open, unfamiliar ceiling greeted her, high, pristine white, with recessed lighting that spoke of wealth she'd only seen in magazines. The second thing she noticed made her heart stop. Blood. Crimson stains on white sheets. Not much, but enough to send ice flooding through her veins. The third thing, she was naked. Alara's breath caught as she clutched the silk sheet to her chest, her mind scrambling through fog and fragmented memories. This wasn't her cramped studio apartment with its water-stained walls and creaking radiator. This was luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Seoul's skyline glittering in the early morning light, buildings stretching toward a gray sky like glass giants. Where am I? A phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand. Not hers, the sleek device was far too expensive. Next to it lay a watch that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, and designer clothes draped over a chair with careless elegance. Then she saw it. Tucked partially under a jacket, the dark metallic glint of a gun. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she slowly turned her head to the left. He was there. A man lay beside her, turned slightly away, his breathing deep and even. Broad shoulders rose and fell beneath golden skin, dark hair falling across his forehead. Even in sleep, there was something commanding about him, something that made the air feel thicker. Handsome didn't begin to cover it. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade catching light. Memories crashed through her mind in waves. Rain. Heavy, relentless rain turning the streets into rivers of neon reflection. Her heel breaking on the subway steps, cursing her luck, her life, everything. A door held open by a stranger's hand. Careful, he'd said, voice low and warm like whiskey. The way he'd looked at her in that late-night cafe, like she was the only real thing in a city of ghosts. Laughter that came easier than it should have between strangers. His fingers brushing her jaw. What are you running from? Tonight? Everything. Her own voice, braver than usual. You? Same. The kiss that tasted like rain and recklessness. His apartment door closing behind them, mouths finding each other in the darkness, hands desperate and seeking, two people trying to forget their lives for just one night. Stay still. Alara froze. His voice, rough with sleep, cut through her panic. The man shifted, wincing slightly, and she saw it, a bandage wrapped around his left side, a dark stain seeping through. The blood on the sheets wasn't hers. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Dark eyes, impossibly deep, studied her with an intensity that made her feel exposed in ways that had nothing to do with her lack of clothing. You're awake, he said softly, and despite everything, he smiled. A small, genuine smile that transformed his face from dangerous to devastatingly human. Who are you? Alara whispered, her voice cracking. The phone buzzed again, violent and insistent. His smile faded. Outside, sirens began to wail in the distance, growing closer. That, he said quietly, is complicated. 24 hours earlier, Alara Vale's life had been predictable, exhausting, and entirely her own. She'd woken at 5 a.m. in her shoebox apartment in Hongdae, made instant coffee that tasted like regret, and checked her phone for the daily update from Songnam Hospital. Her mother's condition, stable. Treatment costs, astronomical. Her bank account, laughing at her. At 6, she'd started her shift at the convenience store near Hangik University, smiling at customers and restocking shelves until her feet ached. At noon, she'd rushed to her second job at a tutoring center, teaching English to middle schoolers who'd rather be anywhere else. By evening, she was at the restaurant, serving wealthy patrons food she couldn't afford to taste. 3 jobs. 6 days a week. No social life. No adventures. Just survival. Alara was 23 and felt ancient. Her friends from nursing school had graduated and moved on to hospital positions with regular hours and actual paychecks. But when her mother's diagnosis came, stage 3 lymphoma, Alara's carefully planned life had shattered like glass. She'd dropped out. Taken the jobs. Became a ghost who worked and slept and worked again. "You're going to burn out," her best friend Maya had warned over cheap soju last month. Maya, with her pixie cut and bright laugh, worked in tech and couldn't understand why Alara wouldn't accept her loan offers. "I don't take charity," Alara had said. "It's not charity, it's friendship, you stubborn ass." But Alara had learned early that depending on others meant disappointment. Her father had taught her that lesson when he died in a shooting 10 years ago, leaving them with nothing but debts and questions. She'd been 13, and she'd promised herself she'd never be helpless again. So she didn't take risks. Didn't trust strangers. Didn't believe in fairy tales. Until last night. The storm had come out of nowhere, swallowing the city in sheets of rain. Alara's heel had snapped on the subway steps, and she'd stood there in the downpour, soaked and furious and so tired she wanted to scream. Careful. She'd looked up to find a man holding the cafe door open, sheltering her from the rain with his umbrella. Expensive suit, but loosened tie. Exhausted eyes that matched her own. "Thanks," she'd muttered, limping inside. She'd meant to order coffee and leave. Instead, she'd found him at the corner table, and somehow, impossibly, they'd started talking. He didn't ask what she did or where she was from. Instead, he'd asked, "What would you do if you could disappear for one night?" The question had caught her off guard. Sleep for 12 hours straight. His laugh had been unexpected, genuine. Honest. "I like that." They'd talked until the cafe closed. About nothing and everything. He'd spoken in careful generalities, no names, no details, but there was something magnetic about the way he listened, like her words actually mattered. When he'd walked her to the subway, the rain had started again. He'd kissed her at the platform, soft and questioning, and she'd kissed him back like she was someone else. Someone brave. "Come with me," he'd whispered against her mouth. And God help her, she had. Now, sitting in his bed with blood on the sheets and a gun 5 feet away, Alara wondered if bravery was just another word for stupidity. Her phone, wherever it was, buzzed with incoming texts. She could imagine Maya's messages. *, "Where are you? Alara, answer me. I'm calling the police. *. Your friend is worried," the stranger said, still watching her with those impossible eyes. He sat up slowly, wincing, the sheet falling to his waist. "Maya, right? You mentioned her last night. You remember her name?" "I remember everything you told me." He reached for his phone, silenced it, then met her gaze. "I'm sorry. About all of this. You should have woken up to breakfast, not," he gestured at the bandage, the blood, the chaos. "What happened to you?" "Wrong place, wrong time." His smile was bitter now. "Story of my life." Before she could respond, his phone lit up again. This time, he answered. "Yes?" A pause. His expression hardened, became something cold and commanding that made her shiver. "I don't care. Handle it." He hung up. When he looked at her again, she saw something new in his face. Not just danger. Power. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "And you're not going to like it." The sirens outside grew louder. "My name is Seo Jae-hyun," he said. "And last night, you saved my life." "Saved your life?" Alara's voice came out sharper than intended. "What are you talking about?" Jae-hyun gestured to the bandage wrapped around his torso. "The blood you saw. It's from this. A knife wound I got at a club in Itaewon around midnight." Her nursing instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop her. "Let me see it." He hesitated, then slowly peeled back the bandage. The cut ran along his ribcage, not deep enough to be fatal, but enough to bleed heavily. Someone had cleaned and wrapped it with surprising skill. Someone. Memory fragments suddenly sharpened into focus. Not the cafe. Not the kissing. Before that. The alley behind Club Azure. She'd been cutting through to catch the last train when she'd heard the groan. Found him collapsed against the wall, blood soaking through his white shirt, rain mixing with crimson on the pavement. She should have called the police. Should have run. Instead, she dragged him into the closed flower shop's alcove, used her scarf as pressure on the wound, called emergency services on her dying phone battery. Stayed with him until the ambulance came. No, wait. There was no ambulance, she whispered. No, Jae-hyun confirmed. You called my driver instead. I was conscious enough to give you the number. You saved me from bleeding out, then helped get me home. His eyes softened. You asked if I needed a hospital. I said I needed to disappear. You understood somehow. I thought, she pressed her hands to her temples. I thought you were in trouble. Running from something bad. I was. I am. He reached for his shirt, wincing. But I'm also the bad thing others run from. Before she could process that, his phone exploded with messages. He glanced at the screen and his entire body went rigid. Get dressed, he said, voice transformed into pure command. Now. Excuse me? Please. The words sounded foreign in his mouth, desperate. Trust me one more time. The fear in his eyes convinced her more than his words. Elara grabbed her dress from the floor, turned her back, and pulled it on with shaking hands. When she faced him again, he was fully clothed, the gun now tucked into a shoulder holster. Who are you really? She demanded. Exactly who I said. Seo Jae-hyun. My family. He stopped as the penthouse elevator dinged. There's no time. Stay behind me. The doors opened to reveal 4 men in black suits. Not police. Something worse. They moved with military precision, eyes scanning the apartment like predators. The lead man spotted Jae-hyun and smiled without warmth. Mr. Seo. You missed this morning's meeting. I was indisposed. Jae-hyun's voice could have frozen fire. He'd positioned himself between Elara and the men, his stance deceptively casual but ready. Tell Director Kong I'll reschedule. Director Kong doesn't appreciate being made to wait. The man's eyes slid to Elara. Especially when you're occupied with distractions. Something dangerous flickered across Jae-hyun's face. Watch your mouth. She was seen with you last night. At the club. In the alley. The man took a step forward. That makes her a witness. Director Kong would like to speak with her. That's not happening. It wasn't a request. The air in the room changed. Elara felt it like static electricity before a lightning strike. Leave, Jae-hyun said quietly. While you still can. The lead man laughed and reached inside his jacket. What happened next took 3 seconds but felt like 3 hours. Jae-hyun moved, fluid, lethal, impossibly fast. He closed the distance before the man cleared his weapon, struck him in the throat, disarmed him, and used his body as a shield against the others. Elara, behind the counter, now. She ran, crouching behind the kitchen island as chaos erupted. Gunshots, silenced but still deafening in the enclosed space. Breaking glass. Grunts of pain. She'd seen action movies. This wasn't that. This was efficient brutality. Jae-hyun fought like someone who'd done this 1,000 times, every movement precise and purposeful. Within 30 seconds, all 4 men were on the ground, groaning or unconscious. He appeared above her, not even breathing hard, extending his hand. We need to leave. More will come. Those men. I know. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry you saw that. But they wouldn't have just talked to you, Elara. They would have made you disappear. He led her to what looked like a solid wall, pressed a hidden panel, and a door swung open to reveal a private elevator. In the car, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows, Seoul blurred past as the driver navigated through traffic with professional efficiency. Ilera sat in stunned silence while Jae-hyun made calls in rapid Korean, his tone alternating between commanding and furious. Finally, he turned to her. "Last night, after you helped me, we went to that cafe. We talked. We laughed. For a few hours, I wasn't who I really am." His voice softened. "You made me feel human again. So when you said you wanted to forget your life for one night, I understood. We came back here. I remember what we did," she said, face burning. "I didn't plan for you to wake up to this nightmare." He reached out, then stopped, hand hovering. "People want me dead, Ilera. Powerful people. You saved my life last night, and they saw you do it. I'm sorry, but you're in this now." The car pulled into an underground garage. Before she could speak, he leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers, a gesture so intimate it stole her breath. "I'm sorry you met me," he whispered. "But I'm not sorry you stayed." The safe house was nothing like his penthouse. Tucked in the hills of Bukhansan, it resembled a traditional hanok from outside, but inside it was a fortress. Steel-reinforced walls, security cameras covering every angle, supplies that could last months. A beautiful prison. Ilera stood in the main room, arms crossed, fury and fear warring in her chest. "Tell me everything. Now." Jae-hyun poured 2 glasses of water with steady hands. The Seo family has controlled one of Korea's largest business empires for 3 generations. Legitimate on paper, shipping, real estate, technology. But beneath that, he paused. "We handle things the government can't. Or won't. You're criminals. We're necessary." His eyes met hers, unflinching. "My father died 6 months ago. Heart attack, they said. I know better. Someone wanted him gone, wanted our organization fractured. I inherited everything, the companies, the power, and all the people who want me dead. Then let me leave." She moved toward the door. "This isn't my world. They've already seen your face, Ilera." His voice stopped her. "You saved my life in that alley. You stayed with me. To my enemies, that makes you either an asset or a liability." Her phone, retrieved from his apartment, buzzed in her pocket. Maya's texts had evolved from worried to frantic. But it was the photo that made her blood freeze. Her apartment building. Fire trucks. Smoke billowing from her floor. "No." The word came out broken. Jae-hyun was beside her instantly, looking at the screen. His jaw clenched. "When?" 2 hours ago." Her hands shook. "Everything I own," Maya's messages say. "The whole unit burned." Another call. "Hospital." She answered with dread pooling in her stomach. "Ms. Vale? This is Songnam Hospital Security. There were men here earlier asking about your mother. They weren't family, and they knew details they shouldn't. We've increased security, but..." Ilera didn't hear the rest. The phone slipped from her grip. The slap came from somewhere primal, her palm connecting with Jae-hyun's face with enough force to snap his head sideways. "You did this. They're targeting her because of you." He took it without moving, without defending himself. "Yes. She's dying. She's all I have," and now, the tears came hot and furious. Her legs buckled. Jae-hyun caught her before she hit the floor, pulling her against his chest as sobs racked her body. She wanted to push him away, to hate him, but she was so tired of being strong alone. "I will protect everyone you love," he said into her hair, voice rough with emotion. "I swear it on my life. Your mother will have 24-hour security. The best. They won't touch her. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one who can keep you both alive." The days that followed blurred together in forced proximity. Elara had no choice but to stay while Jaehyun's people investigated the threat, secured her mother, and tried to identify who'd ordered the attacks. She learned he could cook, simple dishes that reminded her he'd once been someone's son before he was anyone's weapon. She learned he woke with nightmares he wouldn't discuss. She learned the careful way he moved through space, always aware of exits and angles, never fully at rest. One evening, he taught her basic self-defense in the training room. If someone grabs you like this, his hand circled her wrist. I know. She twisted, broke his grip using her elbow as leverage. Nursing school required self-defense training. Drunk patients can be dangerous. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something warmer. You're full of surprises, Elara Vale. So are you, Seo Jae-hyun. Their eyes held for a moment too long. His hand was still touching her arm. She could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. He stepped back abruptly. Again. Faster this time. Late that night, she found him on the deck, staring at Seoul's distant lights. Winter air bit through her borrowed sweater. Can't sleep, she asked. Never really could. He didn't look at her. Even as a kid. My father used to say I had too many thoughts, not enough peace. What was he like? Your father. Jae-hyun's expression softened with memory and pain. Strong. Ruthless when needed. But with me, his voice caught. He taught me piano. Took me fishing. Told me that power meant nothing if you forgot what you were protecting. He finally met her eyes. I'm terrified I'm forgetting. The vulnerability in his words cracked something in her chest. You haven't. You're protecting me, aren't you? A stranger who means nothing. You're not nothing. The words came out fierce. You saw me bleeding in an alley and your first instinct was to save me, not save yourself. Do you know how rare that is? How? He stopped, jaw working. Elara moved closer. How what? How it made me feel like maybe I was worth saving. The space between them evaporated. She didn't know who moved first, maybe both simultaneously, but suddenly his mouth was on hers, desperate and searching. Different from their first kiss. This one tasted like truth and fear and need. The security alarm shattered the moment. They broke apart, Jae-hyun already reaching for the weapon he kept concealed. Stay behind me. Again? She tried for levity but her heart was hammering. His smile was brief, fierce. Always. The alarm was false, a sensor malfunction. But the man who arrived to check the system brought something worse than intruders. Park Min-jae, Jae-hyun's lead investigator, was a compact man with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. He'd served Jae-hyun's father for 20 years and carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who knew where all the bodies were buried, sometimes literally. He laid a folder on the table with the reverence of a funeral director presenting final arrangements. We know who's behind it, Min-jae said. Kang Dae-won. The Black Crane Circle. Jae-hyun went perfectly still. You're certain? The men who attacked your penthouse? They all trace back to Kang's network. He's been consolidating power since your father died, buying loyalties, eliminating competition. Min-jae's expression darkened. He wants the Seo Empire. And he wants you dead first. Elara listened from the doorway, trying to understand the weight those names carried. Who is Kang Dae-won? A ghost, Jae-hyun said quietly. On paper, he's a respected businessman. In reality, he runs the Black Crane Circle, one of the oldest criminal networks in Asia. They deal in everything: weapons, trafficking, political manipulation. My father spent years trying to eliminate them. That's not all. Min-jae opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents. 10 years ago, Kang ordered a hit on someone he considered a loose end. A low-level accountant who'd stumbled onto evidence of the circle's operations. The man was killed in what appeared to be a random street shooting in Gangnam. The room tilted. Elara's hand went to her pocket automatically, fingers finding the worn newspaper clipping she'd carried for a decade. She always kept it close, a talisman of grief and unanswered questions. With shaking hands, she unfolded it. The headline screamed up at her, "Man killed in apparent random violence." Beneath it, her father's photo, younger, smiling, alive. What date? Her voice came from far away. Min-jae checked his notes. March 15, 2015. The clipping fluttered from her grip. Jae-hyun picked it up, and she watched the color drain from his face as he read. When his eyes met hers, she saw the truth before he spoke it. "My father," his voice cracked. "My father was investigating that murder. He told me someone innocent had been killed to cover up corruption. He was trying to find proof, to bring them down." His hands clenched into fists. "Kang killed him too. Made it look like a heart attack." The connections snapped into place like bones breaking. Her father. His father. Both murdered by the same monster. Both trying to stop the same evil. Their meeting in that alley hadn't been chance. It had been destiny written in blood a decade ago. "You knew." Ilara's accusation came out venomous. "You knew who I was. That's why you brought me here, kept me close. You're using me as bait or leverage or..." "No." Jae-hyun reached for her but she jerked away. "I swear I didn't know. Min-jae just discovered the connection. Your father's name wasn't in our files, Kang buried it too well. Convenient. Ilara, please. My father died because of your world." Tears burned her eyes. He was just an accountant. A good man who wanted to do the right thing, and your world killed him for it. Now you've dragged me into the same nightmare. I didn't want this. His composure shattered. "Do you think I wanted you in danger? That night in the alley, when you saved me, I didn't know who you were, but I knew you were good. Pure. Everything I'm not. And for a few hours, being near you made me feel like I could be something other than this." He gestured at the weapons, the security feeds, the fortress they were trapped in. "But you're right. I'm poison. Everyone I touch dies or gets hurt." Min-jae cleared his throat. "I'll give you privacy." He left quietly, taking the folder of horrors with him. The silence between them felt like standing on the edge of an abyss. "I wanted it to be real," Ilara whispered. "That night. The cafe. The way you looked at me like I mattered. Was any of it real?" Jae-hyun closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face with devastating gentleness. "All of it. Every word. Every moment." His voice dropped to something raw and broken. "I'm falling for you, Ilara. Maybe I already fell. And now I know why we found each other. Our fathers sent us, maybe. To finish what they started. Or to die trying. Then we die together." His forehead touched hers. "But not before I burn Kang Dae-won's world to the ground." The kiss was different this time, not tender or exploratory but fierce with rage and grief and desperate need. They came together like two people drowning, seeking air in each other's breath. Clothes became obstacles, removed with urgent hands. They made it to his bedroom somehow, falling onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and emotion. When he paused, searching her eyes for permission, she pulled him closer. "Don't stop," she breathed. "Don't let me think. Not tonight." So he didn't. They moved together in the darkness, two broken people seeking solace in skin and touch and the temporary oblivion of connection. He whispered her name like a prayer. She traced the scars on his body, proof he'd survived when so many others hadn't. Afterwards, they lay wrapped in sheets and each other, hearts gradually slowing. "I won't let him take you too," Jae-hyun murmured against her hair. "Whatever it costs." "I know." She believed him. Morning came too soon, bringing with it the sound of Jae-hyun's phone vibrating violently. A message. No number. Just a photo and 3 words. The photo showed her mother through a hospital window, unconscious and vulnerable. The text read, "Leave him. Or she's next." Elara stared at the phone screen until the image burned into her retinas. Her mother. The only family she had left. Fragile and sick and now a target because Elara had been stupid enough to save a stranger in an alley. No. Jae-hyun's voice was steel. Whatever you're thinking, no. I have to leave. The words tasted like ash. They'll kill her. You know they will. They'll kill you both the moment you walk out that door. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Elara, listen to me. Kang doesn't make deals. He makes examples. She wrenched free. Then what do I do? Let my mother die while I hide here with you? She's all I have. And you're all I have. The confession hung between them, raw and terrible. Elara's laugh was bitter. You've known me 4 days. You have an empire, money, power. None of it means anything without someone to protect. His hands clenched and unclenched. My father told me that. I didn't understand until I met you. Please. Don't ask me to let you go. I'm not asking. She started gathering her clothes, each movement mechanical. I'm going to the hospital. I'm going to see my mother. And then I'm going to disappear from your life before anyone else I love gets hurt. I won't let you die for me. And I won't let you live with another death on your conscience. Her scream echoed off the walls. You said everyone you touch dies. Prove me wrong. Let me go. His face crumpled. For a moment he looked young, lost, the boy who'd watched his father die and inherited a crown of thorns. I already lived for you, he said quietly. That's more dangerous. Elara's resolve wavered. What? That night in the alley. I was ready to give up. To let it end. Then you appeared like something from a dream and demanded I stay alive. So I did. For you. He moved closer, every word weighted with emotion. Walking away won't save you. It'll just mean we die separately. Then we go together. To the hospital. We end this. It's a trap. I know. She met his eyes. But she's my mother. Jae-hyun's jaw worked. Finally, he nodded once. We take Min-jae and a full security team. You don't leave my sight. Agreed? Agreed. The drive to Songnam Hospital felt like traveling to an execution. Elara sat rigid in the back seat while Jae-hyun coordinated with his team through an earpiece. 3 vehicles. 12 armed men. Routes planned down to the second. Overkill for a hospital visit, she murmured. Not nearly enough. They were right. The ambush came in the parking garage. One moment they were moving toward the elevators in formation, the next moment gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Planned. Professional. Overwhelming. Jae-hyun moved like water, pulling Elara behind a concrete pillar as bullets sparked off metal and stone. His men returned fire, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Stay down. He leaned out, fired twice, dropped an attacker. More came. They just kept coming. Then Elara saw him, a man in a black suit working his way around their position, flanking them. She grabbed Jae-hyun's jacket. Left side. He spun, but not fast enough. The bullet caught him high in the shoulder, spinning him backward. Blood bloomed across his shirt. Jae-hyun. I'm fine, go. He pushed her toward Min-jae, who'd fought his way closer. Get her out. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He fired again, eyes blazing with fear and fury. Min-jae, get her to safety, that's an order. Strong hands grabbed Elara's arm. She fought, screaming Jae-hyun's name, watching him hold off attackers to give them time to escape. The last thing she saw before Min-jae pulled her into the stairwell was Jae-hyun going down under 3 men. Then something struck the back of her head. Darkness swallowed everything. Jae-hyun woke to silence and pain. He was back in the safe house. Min-jae must have retrieved him. His shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed bone. But that pain was nothing compared to the emptiness beside him. Elara? His voice came out hoarse. Min-jae appeared, face grim. They took her. And the hospital says her mother is gone too, checked out by men claiming to be family. The world tilted. How long? 4 hours. Jae-hyun tried to stand, nearly collapsed. Assemble everyone. I don't care if we have to burn Seoul to the ground, we find. His phone rang. Unknown number. Kang Dae-won's voice was cultured, almost kind. Mr. Seo. I believe I have something of yours. 2 somethings, actually. Such devoted women. The daughter wouldn't stop asking about you even under interrogation. Rage turned Jae-hyun's vision red. If you hurt her. Hurt her? I'm offering you a trade. Your life for theirs. Come alone to the Han River warehouse district at dawn. Bring anyone, and I'll kill the mother first while the daughter watches. A pause. Your father and her father both thought they could stop me. Look where they are now. Look where their children are. The line went dead. Somewhere in darkness, Elara came with her hands bound and her head pounding. She was in a warehouse, a cold metal floor beneath her. Nearby, her mother lay unconscious on a cot, hooked to and for. At least she was alive. Awake, Ms. Vale? The man who entered was distinguished-looking, silver-haired, expensively dressed. Nothing about him screamed monster. That made it worse somehow. Kang Dae-won, she guessed. Clever girl. Your father was clever too. Look where it got him. He crouched in front of her. I know everything about you, Elara. Your 3 jobs. Your dropout status. Your desperation. I could have helped you. Instead, you chose him. He's worth choosing. Kang's smile was pitying. Your father and Seo Jinwoo thought they could bring down the Black Crane Circle. They were wrong. Their sons will learn the same lesson. The circle is eternal. Men are temporary. You're just a coward who kills from the shadows. The slap came fast, snapping her head sideways. Blood filled her mouth. Brave words from a dying woman. Kang stood. Your boyfriend will come for you at dawn. He won't leave alive. At least you'll have a few hours to prepare for widowhood. He paused at the door. I almost admire your father's courage. He knew I'd kill him and he tried anyway. Will you do the same? When he left, Elara tested her bonds. Tight but not impossible. She thought of Jae-hyun's self-defense lessons. Thought of his voice saying, you're stronger than you know. She had until dawn to prove him right. Jae-hyun stood in the safe house war room, surrounded by maps and surveillance feeds, his injured shoulder bound tight. Min-jae had assembled what remained of their loyal people, 15 men and women who'd served the Seo family for years. He said come alone, Min-jae warned. He also expects me to be stupid enough to actually do it. Jae-hyun's voice was cold calculation. Deploy teams here, and here. I want eyes on every entrance to that warehouse district. His phone buzzed. Unknown number, but not Kang this time. Is this Seo Jae-hyun? A woman's voice, sharp with worry and anger. This is Maya Park. I'm Elara's best friend, and if you got her killed, I swear I will end you myself. Despite everything, Jae-hyun almost smiled. She told me about you. How did you get this number? I work in cybersecurity. Getting numbers is literally my job. A pause. Is she alive? Yes. And I'm bringing her home. Then you'll need help. Keys clattered in the background. I've been tracking Elara's phone since yesterday. The signal died 4 hours ago near Mapogu, but I pulled traffic camera footage. Black vans, warehouse district. I'm sending you coordinates now. The data came through, precise locations, guard rotations visible on security footage Maya had somehow hacked. This woman was either brilliant or reckless. Probably both. Thank you, Jae-hyun said quietly. Don't thank me. Just bring her back. Inside the warehouse, Alara had been working on her bonds for 2 hours. The rope had given slightly, enough that she could move her hands, but not enough to free them completely. She needed a different strategy. The young guard stationed near her mother's cot looked barely 20, nervous, kept checking his phone. New recruit, she guessed. Someone Kong hadn't fully broken yet. When he glanced her way, she met his eyes. How long have you worked for him? Shut up. I'm just curious. You don't look like the others. They're dead inside. You still look human. His jaw clenched. I said shut up. My name's Alara. What's yours? Silence. Then, quietly, Taemin. Taemin. She kept her voice gentle. You know what happens at dawn, right? Kong kills everyone who knows too much. Including the new guards who've seen his face. Fear flickered across his features. He said you'd be rewarded? Promoted? She shook her head. Men like Kong don't leave witnesses. Especially not ones who might grow a conscience. Taemin's hand drifted to his weapon, uncertainty written in every line of his posture. Before Alara could press further, she heard it. Faint. Rhythmic. Metal tapping against concrete from somewhere above. Morse code. She'd learned it from her father, who'd been in the Navy before becoming an accountant. He'd taught her during long hospital stays when her mother was first diagnosed, tapping messages on her hand to distract her from fear. The pattern repeated, READY. Someone was out there. Someone who knew she'd understand. Jae-hyun. Her heart hammered. She needed to respond, to tell him the layout, the guard positions. But how? Her mother's four-stand. Metal pole. If she could reach it. Alara groaned loudly, doubled over as if in pain. What's wrong with you? Taemin moved closer, concerned despite himself. My stomach, I think I'm going to be sick, she retched convincingly, her nursing training paying off in ways her professors never imagined. When he leaned down to check on her, she twisted, using her bound hands to grab the four-pole and strike the concrete floor in deliberate patterns. SXGRDS, ROTATEEVRYTWNTY. Taemin yanked the pole away. Stop that. I'm sorry, she sagged against the wall, but she'd done it. Sent the message. Outside, Jae-hyun smiled grimly as Min-jae translated the tapping. She's still fighting. Of course she is, Min-jae said. She saved your life in an alley, stood up to you in your own home, and faced down your world without flinching. Did you expect her to break now? No. Jae-hyun checked his weapon, his shoulder screaming protest. I expected her to be extraordinary. She always is. Inside, Alara made her move. She'd been watching her mother's monitors, noting the readings. Now she reached up, hands still bound but with enough mobility, and pinched the four-line closed. The heart rate monitor began alarming within seconds. What's happening? Taemin panicked, rushing to the cot. Her oxygen levels are dropping, she needs her medication adjusted or she'll code. Alara's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent years in hospitals. Untie me. Now. Or explain to Kong why his leverage died on your watch. Fear 1. Taemin cut her bonds. Alara immediately went to work, adjusting the four, checking vitals, playing the part of desperate daughter and competent nurse. When Taemin's attention was on the monitors, she grabbed a syringe from the medical supplies. I need you to hold this bag higher, she instructed. The moment he reached up, she jammed the syringe into his thigh, a sedative, not enough to kill but enough to drop him in seconds. I'm sorry, she whispered as he collapsed. But thank you for having a conscience. She freed her mother, disconnected the non-essential monitors, and headed for the exit. They made it to the warehouse door before boots thundered behind them. Stop. Elara pushed her mother behind a crate and spun to face 3 guards. No weapons. No backup. Just her and the self-defense training Jaehyun had drilled into her. The first guard reached for her. She dropped low, swept his legs, used his momentum against him. The second lunged, she drove her elbow into his solar plexus, exactly as Jaehyun had taught her. The third pulled a gun. The warehouse door exploded inward. Jaehyun stood silhouetted against the dawn, weapon raised, eyes blazing with protective fury. He dropped the armed guard with a single shot, then his gaze found Elara. She was bloodied, bruised, her dress torn. But standing. Fighting. I told you I'm not weak, she said. His smile was fierce with pride and relief. I never thought you were. Kang's voice echoed through the warehouse. How touching. But you're surrounded, Mr. Seo. This ends one way. Jaehyun moved to Elara's side, pressed a vest into her hands. Put this on. Trust me. She did. Around them, the warehouse filled with footsteps. Kang's men. Jaehyun's team. All converging for the final confrontation. Elara took Jaehyun's hand, their fingers intertwining. We end this together. Together, he agreed. And they walked forward into the dawn. The Han River Bridge stretched before them like a stage set for destiny. Dawn painted the sky in shades of blood and gold as Kang Daewon emerged from a line of black vehicles, flanked by 20 armed men. Jaehyun stood with Elara at his side, his own team positioned strategically around the bridge. The morning traffic had been diverted, Min Jae's doing. Whatever happened next would happen without innocent casualties. You came, Kang called, his voice carrying across the distance. I'm almost impressed. Most men value their lives more than their toys. She's not a toy. Jaehyun's voice was steady, lethal calm. She's everything you never understood. Everything you destroyed when you killed our fathers. Your fathers were fools who thought they could change the world. Kang spread his arms. The world doesn't change. It eats men like them and spits out the bones. You're next. Maybe. Jaehyun drew his weapon. Or maybe their sons learned from their mistakes. The standoff held for 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Gunfire shattered the morning. Elara dove with Jaehyun behind a concrete barrier, her heart hammering but her mind clear. She'd prepared for this. They both had. North side, 3 o'clock, she shouted, spotting movement. Jaehyun's injured shoulder prevented him from seeing. He spun, fired, trusted her eyes completely. They moved like one organism, her watching his blind spots, him protecting her with his body and his skill. When a guard rushed their position, Elara used the moves Jaehyun had taught her, strike to the throat, knee to the groin, weapon stripped and kicked away. That's my girl, he breathed, fierce with pride. The battle raged around them. Min Jae's team was outnumbered but better trained, picking off Kang's men with surgical precision. But Kang himself remained untouchable behind his wall of guards, directing the fight like a conductor. We need to get closer, Elara said. Draw him out. Too dangerous. You taught me that danger is just another word for necessary. She met his eyes. Trust me. Like I trusted you. Jaehyun's jaw worked. Then he nodded. Stay behind me until I give the signal. They pushed forward through the firefight, moving toward Kang's position. Halfway there, Elara saw the sniper, rooftop, across the river, red dot centered on Jaehyun's chest. She didn't think. She threw herself in front of him as the shot rang out. The impact drove her backward into his arms. For a terrible moment, his face went white with horror. Then she smiled. Vest. We planned this, remember? You insane, beautiful, he kissed her hard and fast. Now. Elara pulled the USB drive from her pocket, the one Taemin had slipped her during her escape, the one containing years of Kang's carefully documented crimes, and sprinted toward the police vehicles that had just arrived at the bridge's end. Maya had come through. She'd sent everything to the authorities with a timestamp proving Kang had orchestrated this standoff. "Officer!" Elara shouted, holding up the drive. Evidence of Black Crane's circle operations, murders, trafficking, corruption, all here. Behind her, Jaehyun advanced on Kang, whose guards were surrendering as police flooded the bridge. The man who'd seemed untouchable suddenly looked small, cornered, desperate. He pulled a gun, aimed at Jaehyun. Taemin, the young guard Elara had befriended, stepped from the police ranks, badge displayed. "Undercover officer. Drop your weapon, sir." Kang's face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You. 3 years I've been inside your organization," Taemin said calmly. "Waiting for enough evidence to bury you. These two just gave it to me." Kang swung his gun toward Elara instead. "Then I'll take her." Jaehyun moved like lightning, disarming him with brutal efficiency. He could have killed Kang then. Should have, maybe. Elara saw the war in his eyes, vengeance versus justice, rage versus honor. She reached for his hand. That simple touch anchored him. "You don't get to make me like you," Jaehyun said quietly, stepping back as police moved in. "My father wanted justice, not revenge. So did hers. That's the difference between us. We're not you. We never will be." Kang lunged, one last desperate attack. Taemin's taser dropped him instantly. As officers swarmed to make the arrest, Elara sagged against Jaehyun, adrenaline finally crashing. His arms came around her, solid and safe and real. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "It's really over." Around them, sirens wailed and officers shouted and the city woke to news of the Black Crane Circle's fall. But in that moment, there was only them. Jaehyun tilted her face up, his thumb gentle on her bruised cheek. "You were magnificent. We both were." He kissed her like he was breathing for the first time, like she was air and life and everything worth fighting for. She tasted salt, his tears or hers, impossible to tell. When they finally broke apart, dawn had fully broken over Seoul. The river sparkled with new light, washing away the darkness of the long night. "What happens now?" Elara asked. Jaehyun looked at the empire he'd inherited, then at the woman who'd saved him in ways that had nothing to do with wounds. "Now? We build something new." 6 months later, the world looked different. Not because it had changed, but because Elara had finally learned to see it through eyes unclouded by fear and exhaustion. The cafe sat perched on a cliff overlooking the East Sea, in a town so small it didn't appear on most maps. That was exactly why they'd chosen it. Whitewashed walls, blue shutters that rattled in the ocean breeze, mismatched furniture that Jaehyun had spent weeks refinishing with his own hands. "Table 4 needs more coffee," Elara called from behind the counter, her apron dusted with flour from the morning's baking. Jaehyun looked up from where he was repairing a wobbly chair leg, tool belt slung low on his hips, hair falling into his eyes. He'd let it grow longer, softer. "I'm on it, boss." She watched him move through the cafe, no longer the deadly grace of a fighter, but the easy comfort of a man who'd finally laid down his weapons. He poured coffee, chatted with the elderly fisherman at table 4 about the morning's catch, laughed at something genuine and unguarded. This was the man she'd glimpsed that first night in the cafe during the storm. The one who'd been buried under crowns and blood and impossible expectations. The bell above the door chimed. "There's my favorite barista." Maya burst in like a whirlwind, her new boyfriend, Jaehyun's former head of security, of all people, trailing behind with an expression of fond exasperation. "You just saw me yesterday," Elara laughed, coming around the counter to hug her best friend. "And I missed you. Sue me." Maya dropped her voice conspiratorially. "Also, your mom called." She's coming down next weekend and wants to know if Jaehyun will make that stew she loves. Ilara's mother had recovered, the cancer in remission after months of treatment that Jaehyun had quietly funded before dismantling most of his fortune. She visited often, had adopted Jaehyun as the son she'd never had, spent hours teaching him her recipes and telling embarrassing stories about Ilara's childhood. He'll be thrilled, Ilara said, meaning it. He's been practicing. That evening, after the cafe closed and their friends departed, Ilara and Jaehyun walked the beach as they did every night. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. "Do you miss it?" she asked quietly. "The power. The empire. Being someone important." Jaehyun stopped walking, turned to face her. The wind caught his hair, the dying light making his eyes impossibly dark and deep. "I gave up being important," he said. "I became something better. I became happy." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a simple silver band. Nothing like the wealth he'd once commanded, but somehow more valuable for its simplicity. "I don't have kingdoms anymore," he said, voice rough with emotion. "No empire, no legacy, no grand destiny. Just my heart. And it's been yours since the moment you stayed in that alley when anyone else would have run." Ilara's vision blurred with tears. "Jaehyun. Marry me," he said. Not a question. A plea. A promise. "Build this small, beautiful, ordinary life with me. Grow old serving coffee and fixing chairs and watching sunsets. Choose me, not because of who I was, but because of who we are together." She didn't need to think. Didn't need to hesitate. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a kiss that tasted like salt air and new beginnings. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving stars scattered across the darkening sky. Jaehyun pulled out his phone, selected a song, something soft and acoustic that she didn't recognize. He held out his hand. "Dance with me?" "There's no music," she teased, even as she stepped into his arms. "There's always music," he murmured against her temple. "When you're here, there's always music." They swayed together on the empty beach, waves whispering against the shore, the cafe lights glowing behind them like a beacon guiding them home. No guards. No threats. No empires to defend or enemies to fight. Just two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk into the light together. Ilara thought of her father, who'd died trying to make the world better. Thought of Jaehyun's father, who'd carried the same impossible dream. Maybe they were watching somehow, proud that their children had finished what they started, not through violence or power, but through love and choice and the courage to build something new. "What are you thinking?" Jaehyun asked softly. "That sometimes love doesn't save the world," Ilara said, resting her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her cheek. "Sometimes it builds a new one." He held her tighter, and they danced on into the night, finally, beautifully free.